everybody, this is Wanda. Welcome to my channel, A Pattern to Follow. Today I'd like to show you how to create this Wildcat hat in several different yarn weights actually. This hat was inspired by a hat that I saw at a store a couple years ago, and I actually absolutely love the concept. So I decided to create my own, and I wanted to do it in a chunkier yarn and a couple of different colors because I was looking for yarn that kind of simulated what I saw in the store and couldn't really find anything that actually did what I was hoping for, but I decided that these would work and be fun. So I just wanted to show you and tell you a couple different things, because this is a number 5 bulky weight yarn. This is using the Charisma yarn, Loops and Threads Charisma yarn in 3 different shades. And then this hat is actually big twist yarn, gentle, at least the gray and the white is the big twist gentle, which is also a bulky weight yarn. But as you can see, the width of these yarns is very, very different. So I actually had to use a very different stitch count for this hat than I did for this hat. And then also when I found the coordinating color that I wanted to use, it's actually it's called Big Twist Living, this purple and black and gray. And I didn't realize it till I got into the project, because I was so excited to find something I liked, that it was actually a number 4 weight. So I had to adapt the hook size from using this bulkier weight yarn. Let me show you the difference here too. So you can see it definitely went down in size. So when I switched to this one, I went up a couple of hook sizes in order to make the stitches as big and kind of fit in, and it worked out pretty well. But I'll have that all in the pattern and tell you what I did on that. So what I wanted to do today, besides showing you the differences in the weights of the yarn and how we sometimes need to adapt to that, is show you that this pattern can really be used for any yarn, any head size. And so today I wanted to together figure out how many stitches it would take to make it in a lighter weight yarn. So as I said, this is the Charisma yarn. This is the bulky 5, but it's the lot, you know, the thicker yarn. And I ended up doing this stitch starts with a foundation half double crochet, so it's worked from bottom up. And for this particular hat, out of this yarn, I did 44 foundation half double crochets around. I was going for around 20 inches around the head because this stitch stretches really good. So I think I went for around 20 inches. So I did this one first, and then when we got to this one, I had to adapt how many rows, because you can see there's a lot more rows in this one as there is in this one, even though this says it's a bulky weight yarn. So for this one, I ended up doing 56 foundation half double crochets for this particular yarn size. So this, like I say, this can be adapted really for any head size as long as you have an even number of stitches of foundation half double crochets, an even number. Really, you just need to take a measurement of the head you're doing it for and go a little bit smaller than that, because you don't want it to be super big, but not a ton smaller, just enough to give it a little bit of give to go over the head. And this hat can be adapted to any of that. You can change the height so it's not as high and just do these decreases a little bit sooner. So it really depends on how you want to do that. Anyway, so today we are going to figure out how to make this hat together using this Yarn Bee Soft Secret yarn. I had some left over from a project that I did, and so I wanted to bring in some colors, and I thought this fun variegated yarn would be fun for the center part of it. So that's what we're going to do today, is to figure out how to use this. This is a number 4 weight yarn. How many stitches? We're going to figure this out together so you can see that this pattern is easily adaptable. For the for the hat in the Charisma yarn, I used a number 9 hook, and this is I believe a Susan Bates hook. These come in a set of larger sizes. They're nice. And then for this hat, I used a 6.5. This happens to be a Boyer hook. And again, another set I got. I actually like using different types of hooks. I like the ergonomic ones quite well. And then for this one today, we're going to try using this clover. We're going to try doing it in a 5 and see what it takes to come up with how many stitches we need. And of course, you'll need scissors and tapestry yarn. You're going to need something to measure so you know when you've got it big enough, and you'll need some stitch markers. Okay, so let's get started. So I decided that I wanted to make the bottom of the hat out of the purple yarn. So we just need to start with a slip knot on our hook by looping over, tucking it under, and grabbing it with our hook and tightening it on our hook. Okay, so you're going to need to chain 3. So you want to do 1, 2, and 3. And since we're doing a half double crochet, you'll need to yarn over. And then you're going to go back into that very first chain that you made, go under it, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And because we need to create the chain row as well as the half double crochet, we're going to yarn over and pull through 1 to create the chain, and then we're going to complete the half double crochet by yarning over and pulling through all 3 loops on our hook. Okay, so now you're going to create the next one. You can kind of see where this yarn twists and crosses over right here. This is what we're going to be going under. We're going to be going under those 2 things, but you have to yarn over first. So the first couple are kind of tricky, but you're going to go under those 2 loops and repeat what we did. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 1. Yarn over and complete the half double crochet by pulling through all 3. Okay? Now I want to go back and take a stitch marker. That would be our second half double crochet that we just did. So I'm going to mark that first one with a stitch. So when I'm counting, I know how many I have. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. We're looking to go under these 2 loops right here. So it'll create like almost like you're going under single crochet. Okay. So yarn over, going in under those 2 loops the last time through. Doesn't want to go under. Okay, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1. If you want to, actually I like to move my finger when I'm doing my work anyway, so if you pinch that one, you'll know where you're going next. Yarn over and pull through all 3, yarn over and then turn it and go right under that stitch you had your finger on, the 2 loops, go through under that, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, make your chain stitch, and yarn over and pull through 3. Okay, let's do that a couple more times because that can get a little confusing. So yarn over, go under the stitch, yarn over, you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, go through 1, yarn over, go through all 3. Again, yarn over, under the last chain stitch that you just created on the base row, yarn over, pull up a loop, you have 3, yarn over, pull through 1, and yarn over, pull through 3. Again, yarn over, under the base that you just created, yarn over, pull through 1, and then pull through 3. If you're having trouble finding it, just remember you just went through 3, so it can't be in any of those. It's the stitch right behind that. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half double crochets on your hook. That's why I like to mark the first one so I don't have to count in my head on what number I'm on. Okay, so for this hat, the Wildcat hat, which had the thinner bulky weight, I ended up with 56 foundation half double crochets. So I'm pretty sure we're probably going to need at least 60, 62, maybe 64 out of this yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and keep creating my foundation half double crochet row. And I'll meet you back here when my row measures about 20 inches. So for whatever yarn you're doing it out of, make sure your foundation row measures, because we're making an adult size hat, so have it measure about 20 inches and make sure you have an even number of stitches in order for this pattern to work. All right, I'll meet you back here. I like to count by 20s when I'm trying to track how many stitches I have. So let's mark that, and then I don't have to keep counting while I'm doing it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I'm going to grab a marker and mark that. So I know I have done 20 foundation half double crochets up to that point. And I know I don't quite have 20 again, so I'll just keep going, and then next time I'll just have to go from this stitch to count 20 more so I can track how many stitches I have. That's just the way I count, it's by 20s. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to see how long it was with 56 foundation half double crochet stitches, since that's what I made out of the other one. And I wanted to see how close we were to 20 inches, and it's only about 16, so we have about 4 more inches to go. So my guess of 60 some odd is probably about right. It could even go up into the 70s. We shall see. I'll meet you back here when I have 20 inches. Okay, I'm back. So I ended up with 72 foundation half double crochet stitches to get to my 20 inches, which is not a terribly uncommon number for the base of a hat out of a 4-weight yarn. So there you go, we're at 72. Okay, so now we're going to get started on the actual pattern, and what we're going to do is make sure that there's no twists in your hat or in your stitch, and we're going to join to that very first foundation half double crochet we made with a slip stitch. Okay, now you're going to chain 2, and this first stitch is going to be a little weird because you're not actually around we'll stitch these 2 together later so that this doesn't come apart like that. But you're going to create a front post half double crochet. Okay, so we're going to do a front post in the first one. So you're going to, after you chain 2, you're going to yarn over. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch. We're going to include that in our thing when we come back around. Yarn over, go underneath your first stitch. So you're going to create a front post by coming underneath this first stitch right here. So yarn over, go under that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop without catching the yarn, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, that's your first front post double crochet. It's a little bit difficult to see till we really get going here. Okay, and then you're going to do a back post around the second one, which is you're going to be going in these holes right here. Okay, so from the back post, you're going to yarn over, and then you're going to come from the back of your work, come up through the front, and then down in between those stitches. If you pinch it a little bit, it's easier to pull through. Yarn over and pull up a loop. You open it back up so you make sure you've got enough slack in your stitches. Yarn over, and see how we've got 3 loops left on our hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Okay, so we have 1 front and 1 back. Okay, so now we're going to front post double crochet around this next stitch. This first row is usually a little bit trickier. You need to go a little bit slower. Subsequent rows should be a little bit easier. Okay, so yarn over, go basically you're going right back in where you ended that back post. So you're going to go in that hole and then come up so it's just the stitch on your hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, now we're going to do a back post. Again, yarn over, coming from behind your work, back in that hole you just finished with the last stitch, and then down into the next one, pinch together. So you're in between stitches there. Pinch together, yarn over, pull up, open it back up so that you've got enough slack on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, so we've got a front and a back and a front and a back. Okay, so the next one's a front loop, back in where we just finished, into this next. So it's just the stitch on your hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Next, back post, yarn over, go under your work, and down in the next hole, pinch a little bit. Just, it's easier to not get your yarn caught that way. Make sure you have just 3 loops on your hook when you come up. Yarn over and pull through all 3. Sometimes you can snag your yarn, so you got to make sure you're only bringing up the loops you wanted. Okay, so now we're going to yarn over, down in where we were, pull up the next stitch, yarn over and pull through 3. And now a back loop, yarn over, back under where we were, down into the in between the next 2 stitches, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 3. Okay, so you're starting to create a little bit of ribbing here, which is what this is going to look like. Okay, you're starting to create those ribs. So you're going to do this all the way around, and because we started with a front post double crochet, you need to make sure your thing is not twisted. I thought I twisted there for a second. The last stitch on this where we connected needs to be a back post double crochet. If it's not, then you've missed one, or you've done 2 front posts in a row or something. So just double check your work. I always like to glance back to make sure I haven't messed up and done 2 front posts or 2 back posts together, okay? Because this is an every other one pattern. All right, so I'll meet you back here when I get to these last few stitches. All right, I'm down to my last few stitches. I just finished a back, so let's do a front post half double crochet and a back. And a front and a back. These last couple of stitches can be really hard to see, but there's actually 2 stitches here, 1 and 2. So we need a front, and we need to end with a back post double crochet because we started our row with a front post double crochet. Okay, so around that last stitch, which actually comes kind of around that spot. There's not really a place to go around it right now. And pull up a loop, okay? So I'm gonna take a second and I'm gonna stitch. I'm just gonna use this yarn right here from my beginning and tack that together before I go on to the next row. Put a stitch marker in so I don't lose my stitch. It's a little bit easier to see subsequent rows if you just take a minute to tack those 2 together. So just kind of come through the end there to flip it a little bit. Just like you're weaving in ends. Make sure you make a good knot, pulling it tight here at the beginning. You don't want to go too far up because you've done with it being a front post stitch, you don't want to catch that in there. So this will be much easier to see with subsequent rows. Well, I think that's all right. We'll snip that off. Okay, so we've just finished our first row. So now we are going to slip stitch into the top of the first front post, this stitch right here. So we're going to slip stitch into the top of that. And chain 2. Now, because you have a chain stitch from what you did in your other row, I like to go around that chain stitch while I'm catching this first one so it doesn't show up as much. So we're going to wrap around. There's the chain stitch, and there's the first front post double crochet, or excuse me, half double crochet, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, now I do like to mark my first stitch with a stitch marker so I don't get confused between where it starts and the chain stitch, and plus I like seeing how close I am to the end of the row. Okay, so we did a front post. We're just going to do front post half double crochet over a front post and a back post back post half double crochet over the back post ones. So we're just going same stitches over the top, alternating. So we did a back post on that one, coming up with a back post. These should be easier because you actually can see the stitches a little easier than trying to go in that first foundation row. So over and into the front. It's always easiest if you go like this would have been a stitch if you were coming from this way. If you go under those 2 there, then you know you're in the right spot. You can sometimes go down a little bit further, but not much. So front, and the same for the back, and up. So this whole row is just repeating what you did on the row below. Again, making sure that you're not going down in here. You just want to get these stitches up here. And a back. A couple more together. And a front post. And a back post. Again, front post and around the back post. All right. So now you can see that that stitch is getting a little taller compared to the one before. We're going to repeat this all the way around till you come back to your stitch marker, and we'll join there. And from this point on, it's kind of a matter of deciding how many rows, how high you want each color. You could add more colors if you wanted. You could use scrap yarn and make striped hats. It's totally up to you on the design of this. It's just, once you know the basic stitch and what you need to do, it's pretty easy to do. Okay, so I'm back, and I just completed my 5 rows, and I wanted to show you what this measured. And we've got about a tiny bit over an 1 3/4. So I want to go at least 1 more round on this. And while I'm stopped, let me show you on this row, on this hat. I just wanted to show you because it's very different in the yarn you use and really your personal decision. But just so you know, on this hat, I did 5 rounds in the gray, and then I did 10 rounds in this color, and then there's another 3 rounds in the white before the decrease starts, and I think it was a total of 7 rows total. By the time you decrease, it got to the top of the hat. So in comparison, in the brown hat, I only did 3 rows in the beige because the yarn's so much bigger, it takes up less space. And then I did 8 rounds in this variegated yarn. And then I believe there was only 5 rounds to the top of the hat, 3 before we did the decrease. So you can see that it's very different depending on what yarn you're using. So you kind of need to, again, know the measurement of your head, and the hat needs to, well, by the time you get to the increase here, that's 6.5 inches, or the decrease, excuse me, and it's 7 on this one. So this hat's gonna be a little bit taller than that one, but that's totally up to you. It's okay to make it a little bit slouchy. So anyway, just so you know, that's what I've done in these yarns, and we'll figure out what we're doing in this yarn. So again, I just completed round 5, and I want to do at least 1 more round and measure and see if I like the height of it. You know, I might change it up and do something a little bit different on this particular color, but I'll get to round 6. If I don't like it, I'll go to round 7, and you'll know by the time I come back. Okay, I'm back. I decided to go 7 rounds because I like to hike a little bit better, and it doesn't have to be exactly like the other hat. Again, this is your own design. So this ended up being 2 1/4, so it's really not that much more. And so I'm going to move on to my variegated yarn. Actually, I had to wind it in a ball because it was coming out of the skein not very well. So, but it's still this Yarn Bee glowing purple multi is what I'm using on this hat. The purple is called the Violet Soft Secret. It's all Soft Secret yarn. So, and even this, you can see there's a little bit of a different weight between these two, even though it's the same yarn and all of that. You just never know. That's why you get to play around. So I'm going to show you how to start this, and we'll do a round or so together in this new color, mostly the color change. And then you get to design your own hat. You get to decide. I'd go at least 5 inches from here to however high in your next color you choose. You can go 6 inches, just depends on how much of the color C you want to use if you're using 3 colors. So let's start again. For me, this will be round 8. For you, it could be a completely different round. So in order to join the color nicely, we're going to actually draw up the new color in our slip stitch. So pull that through, slip stitch with the new color, tug on the old one to make it tight. I like to grab the string on the other one. And then we yarn 2 to move on. And again, for this particular one, I like to catch that chain 2 right there, and the stitch in the very first one. Tug a little snug just to pull them together a little tight. Then I like to loosen up the rest of the stitches. So that's how we yarn or join. I'm going to go ahead and let me do a couple more stitches. So we're on a back post half double crochet, and on a front post, and another back. So I'm going to mark that first stitch. I just did 4, so I like to count over 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes here. And then I'm going to snip the purple yarn and get it out of my way. I'll tie that end in later. All right, so let's do a few more stitches together of your color B yarn, whatever that might be. So we got a front post and a back post. I hope these stitches are going a little easier for you now once you get going. Like I say, the first few rows are a little bit tricky to take. Oh, and before I forget, I want to show you how you can count how many rows you have, in case you're wondering. You can always count these crossover stitches here, but I almost find it easier to pull it apart, because on the when you do a back post stitch, it makes a crossbar. So this was our foundation. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me show you on, it's almost easier to see on this brown one. So see where those cross? See where those stitches cross? That's how you can count your rows. So this is a row, this is a row, this is a row, and this is a row. Or like I say, you can count the loops. That's an easy way to count these. But the crossbars it creates for me is an easier way to count. It's a little bit harder when you do every other one, but sometimes if you're doing a pattern where it's 2 and 2 or whatever, it's a lot easier to see. But that's a way to count your rows if you're interested in how many rows you're making, or if you're following a pattern. And I will have this pattern written up. Try to do it in all 3 yarns so you'll be able to see what it is. Anyway, so again, this is round 8 for me. I'm just kind of designing as I go, deciding what I like on my colors. And again, like I say, hopefully these stitches are going a little bit easier for you. They're a lot easier if you pull looser on them. I like to pull the stitch up a little bit taller so that it's the same height. You see how the one on my hook's shorter than the other ones. It's just easier to pull through, and I think it looks nicer. It's not as tight. It's not loose, but it's not tight. Okay. Okay, so keep going. I'll meet you back at the end of this. I just finished my first round in my color B, my alternating color. See how fun that is all the way around with the changes? And this is going to be really fun to see how it changes. Okay. So go ahead and keep going around as tall as you want. Again, I'll just show you what these hats are in the different colors. In the variegated, in the brown, and the chunkier yarn, it's about 3 inches. Maybe a little less. Well, this is actually the variegated yarn right there, so it's about 3 inches. In the purple one, again, about 3 inches, maybe a 3 1/4. And again, I told you the difference in the, this was 10 rows in this color versus 8 rows in this color. I believe that's what it was. Let me look at my pattern again. Yeah, we went 10 rounds in the purple and 8 rounds in the brown. So again, depends on your yarn. So I'll probably want to go at least maybe 9, 10 rows on this one to make it a similar height. It just depends on how much of the third color you want on top. So it's your design. Okay, I'll meet you back here when I'm ready to change colors, and we'll see what our designs look like. Hi, just wanted to touch base and show you what I've done so far. This is 6 rows of this variegated color. I am loving how this yarn is looking in this stripy look. It's way fun. And I was thinking how cute it would be even if you stopped here and then did your last color that tall. I mean, that's totally up to you. Like 1 stripe around, it just depends on the look you want. But while I was here, I also wanted to go over those last few stitches before you go on to your next row, because I know how hard it is to see some of those stitches. So hopefully I can get the camera and the lighting right. Okay, so here's my last 2 stitches. Here's my last front and here's my last back, but it's so close and sometimes so hard to see. You just need to make sure you're not forgetting to do that, or you'll end up with 2 front post double crochets or half double crochets together, and so you just got to be careful. So here's my last front. And then there's that tricky back one right there. Okay, so from the back, just around that and up. and then I'm ready to move on to the next row. Just wanted to make sure you're catching that, because as I get to the end of that row, again, that's one reason why I like to have the stitch marker, so I know I'm there and I can make sure I'm catching that last back post half double crochet. But anyway, I'm excited to see how this project works out for you. And when we're all done with this and you make yours, I would love for you to post pictures in the comments and we can share what we've created together. All right, I'm gonna keep going with this color. See you back in a minute. Okay, there is 10 rows of the multi-yarn color. I really do love this yarn. I remember why I picked this yarn. I was doing a project for a friend of mine that loves purple and peacock colors, and yeah, I did a project for her using this yarn, and it's adorable. So let's just hold it up to here. It goes up around a little bit, the edges there, but it's pretty close to the same height. The question is, do I want to keep going? Do I want a little bit less of the other color? I think I want to go at least one more row, only because this combination of the yellowish and greenish color isn't my favorite color to end on, to go back into the color C. So I think I want to go a couple more rounds just for that. And then we'll see where we're at. It may only be one round, depends on what the yarn looks like. Again, this is all called let's design it as we go, right? So we're just gonna have fun with this. So I'm gonna do at least one more row, and we'll see where we're at on the color scheme. Okay, I've ended up doing 12 rounds in this variegated yarn. I just think that yarn is so fun, and I like the fact that it's ending more with purple and pinks on the top. I think that will be a more fun transition, but you do whatever you want, whatever colors you love. They're still fun. So this is now a little bit taller than the purple and gray hat, but I think it's okay. We're just going to adjust in subsequent rows. So now, my plan, again, here we are at the designing factor of things. My plan was to go to color C, this kind of cream color in the same type of yarn. But then I started looking, and I kind of like going back to the purple. Trying to decide what I like. So I asked my granddaughter to come up, see what she liked. She went back and forth trying to decide if she liked going back to the purple or going on to the white. And we discussed why it would be good to change. She didn't think there was that much of this in there, and I get it. It just depends on the look you want. But I also pointed out that I want to make the yarn pom-pom on top back out of this variegated color. So if we make it to that, the pom-pom's going to pop better. Whereas if we make it to the purple, it'll still pop, but it won't be as obvious. So, since we're having a hard time deciding, we're gonna flip a coin on camera. How's that for deciding how to design your hat? So here's my quarter. We'll say heads, that it goes to this one, and tails, it goes to purple. Are we gonna be okay with either decision? I think we are. Okay, so I'm gonna have to flip it in my hand off camera, but I'll show you what it ends up being. And flip, 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 flip. And we have heads. So we're gonna go to our white, and that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna get it set up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to join our next color since we're going to the white. The top of that half front post double crochet, front post half double crochet. I'm so sorry, I keep confusing that. And instead of pulling this yarn through, we're going to pull the new color through, color C, color A, whatever color you decide you're going back to. And again, I like to pull that, pull the yarn you just finished tight, chain 2, and again, wrap around and go around the chain and the front post double crochet on this first stitch. Say, I know it makes a bulkier stitch, but either way you do it, even if you don't go around it, there's going to be a little bit of a line there. I just decided to do it this way. You can do it any way you want. Now, as I mentioned before, this, even though it's the same yarn weight in the glowing, the multicolored one, it's still a 4. The purple and the white are a thinner yarn, so it's a little bit different feel, but just trying to make these pretty loose going over the top of these since we're going to a little bit lighter weight. Oops. Okay, so that's going back into the off-white. Actually, it's called ivory in this particular yarn. And yeah, I will make a couple of rounds of this. Again, on the height of this, you can decide. We are at, before we started the white, we are at 5.5, almost 5 3/4 inches. If you want to slouch your hat, you can go taller. This one is 5.5 inches before I start the last color, but here is where the decreases start. So this is really where you need to measure to. So if we take our tape measure from there down, that's about 7 inches on this hat. And we decided this one was actually a little bit shorter. There's my decreases there. You can see where they start. It's about 7 inches there. So we want to go about 7 inches tall on this hat, at least. If you want it slouchier, go taller. Okay, and that's okay. But you'll need to allow yourself, again, 7, whatever you want inches, but if you're going at least 7 inches, you have to allow yourself 3 to 4 rows to do the decrease pattern. We only did 3 in the chunkier yarn and 4 in the lighter, chunkier yarn. So again, we're designing as we go. So I'll meet you back here. I'll probably do 4 rows or so before we get back together. Have fun. Okay, I'm back. I have ended up doing 6 rows in the white. Now I'm ready to start my decrease. That ended up being 7 inches, which is what I wanted. So I just want you to know that, and in this hat, we only ended up doing 4 rows before I started the decrease. And in this hat, I only ended up doing 2 rows before the decrease. So again, it totally depends on the yarn you're using till you reach that 7 or so inch height before you want to start doing your decreases. How you designed it, how many colors you've used, whatnot. So the other thing I wanted to show you is I decided to show you what it would look like if instead of catching that chain 2 stitch around that first half post double crochet, front post half double crochet. So weird to say that. Like we did here, made it a little bit bulkier here. I wanted to show you what it looked like without catching it, which makes it bulkier in the center, and maybe you like that look better. I decided to go ahead and try it on the white because I don't think it's as obvious as it would have been in another color. But I still have my last back post half double crochet to go around. So I wanted to show you that this is the chain 2 stitch. So the only thing I'm going to be going around is just that. Now you could have grabbed it that way and done the 2 chains together on the back end, which would have made the center of it a little more bulky. So it really just depends on what you want to do, what you feel like gives you the least obvious row change. Like I say, it's up to you. It's a little more noticeable in this variegated yarn than maybe the purple, but totally your decision on what you want it to look like. But that's what it's like if you don't catch the chain 2 at all down the center. You can see it's whiter, but it's, you know, it makes it whiter all around. Anyway, your decision. I decided it wasn't a huge change to just show you that on this. Okay, so we're ready for our first row of decreases. So we are going to slip stitch, chain 2 like always. And now what we are going to do, oh, the other thing I need to tell you is if you do it that way, it looks like this is your first stitch to go around, but this is actually your first front post double crochet. This is just that chain 2 space. So be really careful if you do that to not get confused and don't add an extra stitch. Okay, our first row of decreases is going to be front post half double crochets only. So we are going to front post half double crochet 2 together by yarning over first, going under that first front post and under the back post, pulling up the yarn, snug it tight like you did if you were doing the chain at the beginning of the stitch. Just pull it a tiny bit tight. That's your first one. Then you're going to skip and go to the next front post and back post and do those 2 together. So under the front post, under the back post, pull that first stitch a little tight. So you're putting 2 stitches together into 1 front post half double crochet, okay? Again, under the front post, under the back post, pull up a loop, pull through all 3. Just snug on that a little bit tighter. Under the front, under the back, pull tight, and together. Okay, you're going to do that all the way around. That will reduce your stitches to half the count of what your original stitch count was at the beginning. You're going to be taking it down by half by doing this. So 72 stitches, I believe, is what we have here. That would be, we should end up with 36 half post, front post, half double crochets. Goodness, it's hard to throw that half in when you're saying it. On this hat, we went down to 22 because we started with 44. On this hat, we ended up with 28 because we started with 56. So you'll be going down half the number by the time you finish this. So let's do a couple more together. Under the front, under the back, pull tight and pull through all 3. Under the front, under the back, pull tight, pull through all 3. Don't forget to yarn over. Under the front post, under the back post, pull tight and pull together. Okay, so you can see how that's pulling the hat together at the top. This is going to be forming our crown now, okay? So continue that all the way around and I'll meet you back here at the last few stitches. Okay, I'm on my last 2 front post half double crochets together. So under the front, under the back, pull tight, pull through all 3. Now this last one I need to make a decision. Do I want to just go here where it's just the 2 and leave this rib, or do I want to try and pull those all together for these last few rows? I think I'm going to try it under all 3 spaces and we'll see what it looks like. So under the front, there's the back post right there. I'm going to go ahead and go around that chain 2. Let's pull it up and see what it looks like. Now that one's pretty bulky. Well, the problem is you want to eliminate anything that looks like a back post double crochet. So just means the next time you're going to be going around a big chunk. So let's try it and see what it looks like. Okay, so that was my last one. That ended up being 36 front post half double crochets. So now the next row is going to be just going around each stitch. So join to the first stitch, chain 2, and now we're going to be just doing front post double crochet over each front post double crochet we just combined together. Front post half double crochet. Gosh, Molly, that's hard to say. It's not, I just have to remember. Okay, so just under the front post double crochet, and then under the next one. You shouldn't have to pull these stitches quite as tight as you did because it's not a decrease. We're just adding some height and making the decrease rows not quite as obvious by adding a row in between of just doing what we did. So around each front post half double crochet all the way around until you have, in my case, 36 stitches. Again, depending on what yarn you're making it out of, what your count was down here, it should be half the number that you had down here that you're working on right now. Okay, so I'll meet you back around. Ooh, I'm going to mark that first one real fast so I see where it started. And I will meet you back around when I finish that. You see how that's all pulling in. This is going to be forming the crown around the head. So it's all good. Okay, I just finished my very last front post half double crochet around the last stitch. Decided not to catch the chain that time because I think it's going to be too bulky on the way up. I mean, this isn't the crown, so I don't think it's really going to be seen, but I don't think I want to include it. Okay, so again, that should have been another 36 front post half double crochet. So slip stitching into the top of the row you just finished, chaining 2. Now we're going to do our second row of decrease, and this time we are going to be going around. Again, this is being tricky because you got to see that that's kind of where that chain 2 stitch was. So this is my first front post double crochet. We're going to go around 2 front post half double crochets at a time. I am so sorry if I forget saying half through this. It's just, I'm so used to doing double crochet that the half is odd to say. Okay, so we just did 2 together, 2 front post half double crochets together. We're going to do the next 2 together under both of those stitches, pull up a loop. That one got a little bulky. That's that. And again, under 2 half post double crochets, under 2. So we're doing 2 together, front post double crochets together. I have a similar pattern to this where I do half double front post double crochets, so I'm just having a hard time spitting out the right term, and I apologize. It is a half double HDC, half double crochet. under 2, and pull together. And just keep doing that around. So when we're done with this row, we should have half again. So half of 36 is 18. So you should have, if you're using this type of a yarn, a 4-weight, and you've done similar count as me, you should be to 18. On the purple hat, we got down to 14. And on the purple and black gray hat, 14. And on this one, we got down to 22. No, 11. This one was 22 and the next one was 11. Okay, so again, half again as much as you just decreased on the 2 rows before. Okay, so finish this up and I'll meet you back here. Okay, I'm on my last two together front post double crochets, half double crochets. And now we are on what will most likely be our last row. Okay, now on the brown hat, I only did 3 rows of decreases. So I did the decrease row and then repeated the same number of stitches and then decreased it and closed it off because it was tall enough. On the purple and gray hat, I did what I'm doing now, decrease, repeat, just go over those stitches, decrease, and now we're going to go over the stitches. I think this will be tall enough, but we'll give it a look to see. So these when you start decreasing like this, these stitches, especially when you're pulling tight, get kind of tricky to get under. Oof, that was tight. Again, because I pulled tight to close it off. So slip stitch together. Now we're going to do what we did, just repeat what we did. So we're going to go around those 2 together we did, which we ended up with 18. So you're just going to be doing 18 front post half double crochets on this round. Like I say, this will probably be your last round. Try and pull these a little bit tighter if you can, because you don't want it to be loose and lots of holes across the top edge of that hat. I mean, your pom-pom does cover some of that, but you just want to try and be a little bit tight with that. So I had to put a little bit more tension on my yarn. I don't always wrap it around my finger, but for something like this I do. So hopefully you've enjoyed this hat. Oh, did I mark it? I don't think I marked it, so I'm not sure where I'm at. So I'm going to count and see where I'm at. Well, I should be able to see it. There we are right here. Just had to find those obvious rows. This is why I mark, folks. Anyway, I apologize. Hopefully you've enjoyed creating this hat. And I'm so excited to see what you've done. I really do hope you'll share your pictures in the comments below or on the blog post when I get that ready and posted. Say these last few rows when you're doing decreases like this from a bottom up hat can get a little tricky and tight because you don't have as much space to work into as you did. Again, if you wanted this to be a taller hat, I would continue these rows down here before you do your decrease rows. You just need to allow around 4 rows to decrease. But if it's slouchy hat, it's not really going to matter much. Okay, I believe that was our last one because that's that chain stitch. We haven't been going around. Okay, so to close off the hat, you're going to slip stitch into that and pull through again like you're going to chain. Give yourself a decent tail because you're going to be doing some pulling the hat together, and then pull that through and pull tight. Okay, now you're going to need, this is where you're going to need your tapestry needle, because we are going to sew that top edge together. And I'm going to mark my first area still, because when I start going around with the tapestry needle, I like to know that I'm back to the beginning. Okay, now you can use whatever tapestry needles you want. This is probably the most common style. It also comes in metal. I personally like these Susan Bates. They come in like 4 different sizes because I can just slip my yarn in there and not have to eyeball getting it into the eye of the needle. And it's actually a little bit, well, it's a good pokey edge that it's not so sharp that it hurts, but it can still poke into your yarn. So I'm actually going to turn my hat inside out, pull that needle up through there. And now you're just going to go around catching those top rows together, in and out, weaving in and out. I like to pull gently, and I'd rather not tighten until, because it makes it easier, a bigger hole to get into while you're still weaving, rather than tightening it as you go. So I just pull gently, in and out, in and out. This is why I like to put the stitch marker there, so that I know that I've made it back to my beginning area and don't keep going around and round and round, because I haven't been pulling it tight. So, okay, so now when I get back to my stitch marker, pull that out, and then I will pull on that yarn and pull that hat closed. Okay, so now you can see we've kind of created a little circle here. You want to make sure you pull it as tight as you can so that it closes that knot up. Now you need to go around it. See how that's slipping out a little bit, so I'm going to pull again this way. Go around it a couple more times, making sure you're not catching anything from the front side accidentally. Okay, now I like to go across those stitches rather than all the way around, back and forth, making sure I'm getting that hole closed up. Just to make sure that's tight. And you can see this last ridge around here is that last row we made. That's what those going around just the front post one creates. Okay, so probably went too deep on that one. So get that done and cut it off. Now we'll still need to weave in these ends of these. When we did our color change, we'll need to go down and weave those in. But other than that, our hat is pretty much completed except for our pom-pom. So let's see how we did compared to this one. Pretty close to the same size. This one's a little bit bulkier up through here, but height-wise, so I actually could have gone a couple more rows on this if I wanted high, but I think this is still plenty big to fit an adult size head. So we're good there. So I'm going to get prepared to make a pom-pom and I will be back. Here is the pom-pom maker kit that I have. This is a Yarnology one. I will be using the largest pom-pom. That's what I did with the purple and gray hat. So I want to do the large one. If not, a lot of times I'll use the orange one, the kind of the smaller, but you can see it comes in, so you can make little teeny tiny ones if you want. I like using these pom-pom makers, but you actually can make a pom-pom the good old-fashioned way, wrapping around cardboard. But this is what I will be making my pom-pom out of, so I'm going to get ready to do that, and I may just film me doing it, not necessarily talking about how to do it. There's directions on the back about how to make it. So this is a really great little kit. So, all right. Begin by undoing these and placing them back to back like this while you wrap your yarn. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough of this yarn to do what I want for as big as a pom-pom, but that's what I'm going to start with. If I decide I need to add some of the purple and white to it to make it fluffier, I will. But you just start wrapping your yarn around the pom-pom. You don't want to make sure you don't catch in these edges as you go. So I'm probably going to twist my yarn around. And I will go back and forth. Don't worry about that. You can cut it into the pom-pom later. I will go back and forth on this side several times because I like them really fat. The more you wrap around each side, the fatter your pom-pom will be. Not sure how well this is going to film on camera. Probably be speeding it up. Just back and forth, making sure, like I said, you don't catch those edges in. Okay, then switch over to this side and start wrapping. The first wraps takes a little bit more time. Okay. All right, I'm gonna leave myself a decent piece of yarn here because I'm gonna need that to tie it off. And then you put these two pieces together and you clip them together. Oops, we did get around there, didn't we? You snap those together so it stays closed. Okay. Here's the fun part and the tricky part. Okay, so there was, between the two pieces, there's a line, and we're going to be going in that and snipping off. I know it seems weird, but we'll catch it before we pull it apart. But you have to cut it open in order to wrap your yarn. These are pretty small scissors. You could certainly use a little bit bigger scissors. I want to make sure all your yarn's cut through there. Okay, now you're going to take the yarn that you kept and you're going to put it in between those holes. Bring it together. Tie a knot. Pull super duper tight. I like to wrap it again. So pull tight on the one you just did again if you can, and then pull tight on the knot you just made again. You want to wrap this as tight as possible. And then double knot it when you feel okay about it. Okay, and once you've done that, I like to grab the center so it doesn't go anywhere. Just slide the pom-pom maker off. Feels like my yarn shifted a little bit in this, on this one. Okay, and then I like to take those two ends, hold them like this, shake my pom-pom out. Now you've basically made a pom-pom, but as you can see, it needs a haircut. So the more you trim off this, the denser the pom-pom ball becomes, but I really think we had a yarn shift here, so if nothing else, we need to at least make it all the same length as possible. I shake mine quite a bit. Not sure how this yarn's going to work with it being a double twist, so. So just keep giving your little yarn ball a haircut until you like the look of it. This side looks a little longer. We don't expect perfection in ourselves. It's okay to not be a perfect pom-pom. Whatever look you like. Just make sure you don't cut these ends off the pom-pom. Okay, keep trimming till it gets to where you like it. Okay, let's put this pom-pom on the hat. To do it the way I do it, you need your pom-pom with your long strands. Don't cut those off. A large button with 2 holes on it. I've got some other buttons on order that say handcrafted, handmade, which I will give you a link to in the bottom of the video. Tapestry needle and a crochet hook to do this. So you're going to want to put your crochet hook up. I like to try and go to, you can see the circle right there. I like to try and go to a little bit off to the side on one side. And you're going to grab one side of the pom-pom hook and pull that through on the back side. I try not to pull it all the way through, so it's easier to do the second side. So I try and go opposite of where I put this one in and bring my yarn up on the other side of the center circle and do the same thing where we pull the yarn Did it come through? Ooh, barely. See how it barely came through there? Kind of fell off the hook, but it came through enough I was able to do it. Okay, now that I've got both sides through, I'm going to pull that tight. Pull the pom-pom down tight against the hat. Now, if you want to make this a permanent pom-pom so it doesn't come off, you would just tie a couple of really tight knots and weave in some ends, and then it would be a permanent pom-pom. But if you want to make it removable, say it's someone doesn't want a pom-pom on the top of their hat. They just want the hat. They like the hat, but they don't like the pom-pom on it. You can make it a removable pom-pom. Or in the case of this yarn, where I'm not so sure with the fact that this is double weaved two colors together like this, and I'm not sure how those ends are going to fare. See how that's fraying already? I don't know that I want to put that through the laundry. So I like the idea of the pom-pom being detachable. So this is where your button comes in. Turn this inside out so we can see better what we're doing. Okay, so just take one side of your yarn. I want the flat side to be against the head. We're going to put the pom-pom there, so I'm going to put the flat side, but the other buttons I'm going to order pretty much flat all the way around. So one side on one side. The disadvantage to this is if you give it to someone who doesn't have a crochet hook, they might at least want a tapestry needle in order to do this. Okay, so pull that through. Again, pull tight on your pom-pom, and then you're just going to tie a really good knot around that button opening. I don't think you want to do it in a double knot because that would be hard to get off and kind of defeat the purpose of it. But if you tie it, and this is why you need your ends long, just tie it in a little bow, make sure it's tight. That makes that pom-pom completely removable. And like I say, for this particular yarn, I think I would want to take that off to wash it, because you can see this is already fraying, and I don't know what that would look like. So I still need to tie in my ends here. I'll do that in a minute, but look how cute that turned out. I'm very happy with that. I think that's very fun. My lighting is starting to get bad, so how fun is that? Please, please, if you liked this video, if you learned something new, you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so we can get more people exposed to this, to learn how to create their own Wildcat hat out of different yarn weights. And like I say, give me a follow, and I will have a pattern posted below in the video, a written pattern, if you are interested in that. Thanks much.